Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Procrastination Pit Stop, your source for staying motivated and inspired. Today we have another amazing guest. We have with us Jesse Hoffman of MindPeak Company. As the founder and driving force behind MindPeak Co, Jesse combines his passion for psychology and leadership to offer transformative mental performance coaching. With a psychology degree and deep interest in leadership, organizational, and sports psychology, he's dedicated over 8 years to coaching and training. He believes in treating everyone with respect and continuously seeks ways to boost his and others' performance and efficiency. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem at all. Now, before we dig into it, we do have a little fun icebreaker here for you. What or which cartoon characters do you identify most with and why?
Yeah, I love that question. I mean, that's a fun one. I would say, yeah, the two that come top of mind for me are Goofy and Taz. If you from the Looney Tunes, those are two that growing up, people always referred to like that was my character was Goofy. Between that and Taz, I'm either always goofing off, joking around, at least as a kid, or I was tearing stuff up, screaming, yelling, running around. So those are two that I still hold dear to my heart. And I think nowadays that could still apply. I'm either kind of very lighthearted and joking, not really serious, this and that, or I'm like just scrambling, all around doing whatever I do. And so I still can abide by both of those.
Yeah, well, I mean, those are some good things. I mean, in today's world, it's important to be able to not take things seriously sometimes, right? I mean,
100%. Yeah.
sometimes we just take things too seriously.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
So, Jesse, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, sort of your journey? How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So it's been, I wouldn't say anything extraordinary. I got into what I'm doing now effectively through basketball. I mean, and especially when you talk about having fun and being involved in sports, like that's something I pride myself on. It helps give some people confidence when they're out able to go out and have fun. But yeah, back in really high school, I really found a love for the psychology of the game of basketball specifically, which led me into a further interest of just how and why people tick the way that they do. And so by no means was I ever like a star player on my team, barely even got honestly much playing time. And so had a unique perspective of an observer watching my teammates perform each day, prepare all these other things. And so, early on in high school, one of our key players in my junior, senior year of basketball was really making a push for D1. And long story short, did. And seeing that and unfold, and then going on to, I went to the University of Pittsburgh for my undergraduate degree, where I was a student assistant with the basketball team there, being able to work with our guys day in and day out, see how they train, help them, prepare for practice, prepare for games, create those routines and rehearsals that they would perform day in and day out. It was just a really great perspective. That alongside my interest in leadership, you know, being able to be behind the scenes as well with the coaching staff. And we went through 3 really great head coaches while I was there, and being able to see all those different leadership styles and how they interact with each of the players and then seeing them perform. I just, I always had that interest for, okay, well, why did this player get along with this coach, but then this coach, there was something, a different dynamic. And then how could you assure that whoever you're coaching or leading kind of can fall in line and work towards that same team goal? And so I think taking those experiences away with me coming out of school, running right into COVID was a bit of a roadblock. I went and traveled a bit, came back, and then was kind of figuring myself out a bit, to be honest. Came back right before COVID hit, shut everything down, and um, you know, was sitting there wondering what's my next step. And so the most natural answer was, okay, basketball training, and just put myself out there, use my background to see what I could do there. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and so I built up a basketball training business there and had a bunch of really great clients. And a couple years fast forward, I really knew that ultimately I was getting further and further away from basketball in the team environment, and really loved business, really loved real estate. I was managing a handful of properties, and all these other things. And I knew I wanted to work with, you know, entrepreneurs, executives, and creative professionals. And so I made the transition into virtual coaching or multiple performance coaching through virtual sessions. And that's kind of where I've built MindPeak up now, is mostly focused on one-on-one coaching. And that's kind of the long-winded answer of how I've gotten here. And so what I do now is I just work with those people that want to really elevate through their whatever their, if it's a plateau, if it's just, they need to make a few tweaks to really push through to that next level, or if they're starting kind of ground level, rock bottom, they want to overcome feelings of anxiety, depression, and manage their stress a little bit better, overcome procrastination and taking action and all those different things. And so covers a wide array of backgrounds, but yeah, that's what I'm doing now, and that's what I love doing. So
Okay, that's a pretty amazing story. So, what would you say would be your defining moment when you really knew, the moment that you knew that that was something you wanted to pursue? Was there any defining moment?
that is a great question. I think because of my passion all along, and coming in and having my experience that I did in college, I always told myself that I wanted to start an agency. I realized, I guess you could say, the defining moment is realizing in a high level Division I program. This didn't really happen until really my last year there. There's barely any emphasis, or there wasn't really any emphasis on mental performance, on true mental performance. There is like, oh, go to the guidance office and talk to some and do this and that and the other thing. But to create the actual systems and habits and have accountability to perform what's needed to get to the next level, that's not really present from what I had seen in college athletics. It wasn't even in the NBA or really any sports until recent. And I would say that realization of, okay, there's a huge gap in everything. And, there's sports, there's business, there's, whatever. And there's a huge gap in that. And so I guess that fueled my desire to, okay, how can I create something that can offer something that most people are missing? So I wouldn't say there was like a defining moment in my memory of this specific day and time I realized something, but it was kind of more of a progression of, this felt like something I had a personal interest in. I felt like I had a bit of a knack for different things that I had noticed across some players, and making some comments to them and making some slight suggestions privately, and observations that, from what I could tell, made a difference, and had gotten feedback as to that as well. So, yeah.
Okay. And just in terms of procrastination, how would you define it? And what does it mean to you personally?
Yeah. Procrastination. Yeah. Simply, I mean, it's the persistent delay of action. I feel is the most appropriate, simple way to define it. But it's a lot more complex than that. And I guess for anyone listening now, I think it's important to note that to tie any one thing to your identity is a very strong indication of the impact that it's going to play on you. So for me or anyone else to say, "Oh, I am a procrastinator," right? You're really embodying the fact that you just delay action persistently and without really a second thought. I think that that's not really a fair association to make. So for me, the way I see procrastination is, there are, reasons why it happens neurologically, neuroscientifically, I should say, and the way that, rewards and different emotions tied to your limbic system override the prefrontal cortex and prevent those kind of more rational decision-making processes and all that kind of stuff that most people don't think about. And so they feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I procrastinated and I didn't do this and that and the other thing. And usually what happens, and I'm curious to know if anyone feels this way, is you procrastinate, you delay, and then the guilt builds, and then it builds, and then it builds, and then suddenly you feel, okay, now is the tipping point, and now I'm going to take the action, or complete the assignment, or do the dishes, or whatever the case is, and that's kind of the natural cycle of it. And so for me, to be able to have the awareness of each of those factors and then also learn how to regulate your emotions to avoid it and set up the systems and processes to prevent the friction that is between you and a decision. That's kind of I don't know what word I'm looking for, but those are kind of, that's the recipe for how to avoid it, I should say.
Okay. Um, I'm gonna go off here for a second here. You said something that was very interesting and resonated a lot with myself. I haven't been very popular for putting this out there though, so I'm happy that somebody else has actually come out and said it. I would like to dig a little bit deeper into when
Yeah,
you said
sure.
about the labels and like saying like taking that on as part of your identity. Now, this is something that it's a little bit off topic, but I mean it kind of fits in.
Yeah.
When we talk about like addictions and we talk about, just trying to get people past something, whether it be depression, anxiety,
Hmm.
an addiction, whatever, the common practice seems to be, acknowledge you have the problem, but
Yeah.
then it's like you label it and then you take it onto yourself. So how approach a client, say that they're having a chronic problem with anxiety, or maybe they're depressed, or how do you approach the client
Yeah.
and kind of get them to kind of recognize that, get out of that, but without labeling it and kind of causing backwards progress?
Yeah. So I mean, Chris, that's a really great question. Yeah. So one way always that I tend to approach things, first and foremost, when I'm working with a client, I have to really gain a true understanding of who they are, what drives them, the personality profile, and be able to communicate in a way that is kind of compatible with who they are and that resonates with them. So understanding that is huge. I don't, if one client responds well to more authoritative leadership and direction, then I can lean into them a little bit more and say, hey, listen, man, like you're just not taking action and there's no excuse at this point. That's the problem. That might not truly be the problem for everyone. And then some other people might be laissez-faire. They might want to be kind of coddled a bit more, like patted on the back, like, oh, you got this and that. So those are a few different details there that I want to mention. But beyond that, I think just simply habits lead to everything. And we are only as good as our routines, our habits, and our systems that exist in our life. So I think it's important to be able to rewire your brain's responses through changing your habits can reduce procrastination significantly. And what that could look like, for example, someone that is in a depressive state, not someone that is depressed, because again, to be depressed means that that is who you are, and sounds a lot harder to change, but someone that is experiencing a depressive state, there are solutions to get out of that. One of which, for example, sunlight, exercise, hydration. Those three simple things are the top things that I approach with. And it sounds so simple, Chris, but I'm telling you, they are the three most important things for, mental cognitive function, preventing depression. There are scientific studies by the APA and other organizations that prove how sunlight can cure. Maybe I should use the word cure lightly, but how sunlight can help prevent depression long term, hydration, bodily movement, and exercise. Those are three things. I guess this is the short answer to your question in the beginning. Those are three things that I come in with every single client. Are you waking up and are you getting sunlight into your eyes to tell your body and to kind of keep your circadian rhythms in check, to know that, okay, it's time to get moving today? If you sit in bed and you're in the dark and you're on your phone and you're scrolling and you're messing up your brain waves and everything, you're going to stay in that state of kind of disarray because you don't have any structure. And so, yeah, I can get long-winded with these things because I just believe so strongly in them, but ultimately habits is the way to start off with anyone and recognize, okay, well, you are this way because of something. There's not this external force in the world that just wants you to be depressed, that wants you to procrastinate, and that wants you to not achieve anything. There's something that you are doing or not doing that is leading to this. And so, of course, communicating in the way that resonates with each client is important, but at the end of the day, that is what it is.
Okay. You mentioned something there. So, me being in Canada, we
Yeah.
tend to have some pretty interesting cloudy winters. I mean, not
Yes.
Not some other places like the UK or Ireland where you can have
Yeah,
clouds
for
like
sure.
magically what was it 76% of the time. And so how do you advise clients to get enough sunlight when you get maybe or let's take somebody in Alaska even, they got
Yeah.
permanent darkness for like 3 months a year. So what do you do if you can't get any sunlight?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily we have Amazon, which is a pretty great thing. And so if you're in any of those places, circadian lights or any sort of kind of sun mimicking light, just a super bright light that you could have. I mean, there's you might have heard of circadian therapy or not, but there are kind of therapy lights that help get that sunlight into your system. It's absorbed through your skin, it's absorbed through your eyes, of course, predominantly as well. And so that's like a simple tool. The other thing too is depending on where you are, here's actually a really interesting insight, and this for some reason this just popped in my mind. And you could argue that this is probably one of my pivotal moments of, okay, there's something that I need to do here to help other people. I was in my senior year of college, and my room of my apartment had no windows. My bedroom had no windows, and our living room had a sliver of a window facing into like a interior courtyard. So basically got no light as well. And I went through pretty like looking back, I think I might have been depressed, but I didn't outwardly show it to anyone. And I got up, I would drag my feet, I would, get to the gym at 6 a.m. in the morning to to train some guys or go to practice. And all I could think about was, "Oh, I just want to get down and like get back to my bed and just lay down. And I don't have the energy. And I realized at some point, okay, I just feel totally drained all the time. And between my studies and everything, I made the recognition. Luckily, and within the first semester, okay, I don't have any light in my room. What can I do to change this? So I guess I'm just telling a story now, but I went out and I bought some good like LEDs that were capable of achieving the wavelengths of that the sun. And I also bought a timer, just like a Honeywell plug-in timer that I could plug into my lamp. And so I set the timer so that I, track when the sunrise was, and I set the timer to turn on when the sun came up. And so that way, one, it eliminated my need for an alarm. I don't know if anyone else feels like they just can't wake up without an alarm, but if you have light wake you up, one, it allows you to stay in your sleep cycles a lot more naturally and you achieve better quality sleep. But I could get off into that in a totally different podcast forever. So yeah, I did that, and it really helped me kind of wake myself up in the beginning of the days, have that energy to get out and move. And I do believe it made a marked difference. And so, I guess I just told the story just to say that is something that you could do as well if you feel like you're in a bit of a down state. You want to kind of get up and start your day with some light in your eyes. It physiologically wakes you up and can have a big impact. And then that second to hydration and getting your electrolytes in the morning is important as well.
And just going back into that story just a little bit, you mentioned that you had some challenges getting out of bed and things like that, and you fixed it by getting that light source and hydrated and things. Were there any other challenges that you faced kind of after that when you were trying to actually create MindPeak, and how do
Yeah.
you overcome those?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was back in college that I was referring to there. My other challenges there. I mean, I always procrastinated in college, and I think everyone in some ways still does. I don't want to overcomplicate the idea of procrastination. It can be a very simple thing, or you can make it complex as you want. But uh, you know, uh, having to overcome just getting assignments done in school and all those other things. I've been there, done that. I guess grateful that I was able to cram in anything when I needed to. But as far as building MindPeak, any entrepreneur, I would imagine, tends to, and I've made a few videos about this, tends to be a very complex thinker. At least I know I'm a very complex thinker, and so because of that, I probably draw out a lot of tangents in my mind of, okay, well, if I go this direction, then this could be the outcome, or XYZ, could happen. And that applies to every decision. And when you feel like you're building a company and every decision is so huge that you need to take the time and evaluate every angle, you're just only delaying that action further and further out. And so, one thing that I've had to learn how to do is make complex decisions very quickly with the understanding that it might not be the perfect decision, but it will bring me one step closer to more clarity to be able to make ultimately the right decision. So it's kind of trial and error, but at the same time, there is momentum in action simply and purely. That's the only way to build is to continue taking action. And so as someone that is the last one to always order off of a food menu or, whatever the case is, that's been notoriously hard for me in the past, but something that I have been forced to improve on as an entrepreneur. And so luckily I'm in a space where I have a lot of the knowledge needed to make the proper changes. With that said, it's always hard to do it while you're in it. And so, yeah, it's been really helpful. I mean, to combine my knowledge with also having my own coach that can even spit back the things that I say to him in a way that makes it more actionable to me is super valuable as well.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And so how do you go about what's your secret sauce? I mean, you sound like that you've dealt with it. I mean, everybody's dealt with it.
Yeah,
What was your secret sauce to just, getting that action even start to get going?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely situational. If we're talking about exercising, if we're talking about just, developing my website or social media, it's very situational as far as what it is. One thing that, yeah, I hesitate to say that there's a secret sauce. I think the one thing that has been helpful for me is to really understand that I don't want to repeat what I just said, but I'm not going to get anywhere if I don't get somewhere. And so that's kind of been my leading purpose. And I've also, for maybe many people, procrastination might have to do with the potential value of whatever they would be receiving on the end of that effort. If you were to look at it from a financial perspective, I think money has a predominant probably effect on most of our cognitive abilities and that strain that we experience every day. And when you may be making a decision to spend money and then you procrastinate on that, even maybe that it has a purpose, something, sorry, I go on tangents a lot, so I'll just apologize right now, but something tied into that is the idea of temporal discounting, which is effectively when you devalue that potential reward on the other side of that action. So, I mean, it could be as simple as, oh, I don't need clean dishes right now, so I could wait to do that, or, oh, I don't really need that thing or the other thing or whatever. I don't need that A plus. I could like maybe get again, so many different situations, but when it comes to spending money, I think throwing it out a little more carelessly in a sense of, okay, this is me making a decision. I'm going to spend the money on something that I've done recently is to spend the money on some ads. I don't know what's going to come of it. And I went through the whole devaluing of, oh, well, I'm not going to get any clients from that, or, oh, ads aren't really valuable because they're not as authentic and all these other reasons. So I'm not going to spend on that now. But then I got to the point where, okay, that's a part of business is advertising and selling your business and selling your services. I need to embody that and I need to just spend the money on ads. I don't have to have an expectation that I'll get anything from it, but I'll learn. And so for me, that's a huge mindset shift as a very conservative, frugal person in that sense. I don't even know if that answered your question, but that's something that I've been trying to do now is just spend the money, come back, like take the action towards where you want to get to. You can't grow a business without investing in it. So for me, that's kind of what I've had to overcome to grow MindPeak.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So looking at that, what do you love the most about MindPeak and doing what you do?
No, yeah, I love it. I would say ultimately at the end of the day, it's being able, I guess it's a 3-tiered answer, so to speak. First and foremost is building genuine relationships with people. And then as a side bonus that I get to help, so building the relationships, meeting great people, getting to help them. And then also having the, having the freedom and flexibility as well to do it anywhere at any time. which gives me more leverage over my time to help more people. I think that's a really important factor as well. Uh, and I have goals in the future to have a facility and these other things, but hopefully would it require my presence to help people, you know, I, so I think those two things. And then the third, um, of course, is that I'm also creating a sustainable way to support my loved ones and myself through helping other people as well. And so, yeah, I guess that's really what I love about it is it has the potential to provide everything to anyone. Yeah, that might sound a
Hmm.
bit hyperbolic, but I think it's true.
Well, you mentioned some pretty big goals in there. I imagine those are probably a little bit further out. What about in the next year? What's next for you to MindPeak within the next year? Where do you see yourself?
Yeah, so within the next year, I mean, ultimately where I'm at now, I just want to continue refining my coaching ability, my process, my programs, just continue working with really great people. Within the next year, I want to have my one-on-one bucket full and satisfying and know that I can help people one-on-one. Also want to continue growing my B2B format, group coaching, being able to build more of a community where people can come in and help each other out as well, whether that's through my moderation or just in an online community. Those are kind of the big things. And of course, building my social brand as well and just being able to provide value through social media is kind of the top of the list for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I often like asking people this, that you brought up social media, and
Yeah.
it seems sort of I actually battle with this myself.
Yeah.
I don't
I
really
think I know where
like
you're going.
I don't really like the social media just because I think that it is the biggest distraction and the biggest one of the biggest things that we have that we're just sitting there on Instagram and we could be working or something. So
Yeah.
um, when you say putting out good content, I mean, do you? I mean, again, I have this feeling that and it's hey, I'm procrastinating on doing this myself just because like, am I being part of the problem by putting it on social
Produce.
media and encouraging
Yeah.
people to go there? Like,
Yeah. So, what's interesting is you also mentioned another thing, which is justifying procrastination of, and I've heard some crazy examples of, I forget who was even where I was just listening to this, but it was basically it's basically an example of this guy that wanted to get in good shape, but he didn't want to get in too good a shape or didn't want to really go and work out because then he would be more appealing to other people and that would hurt his current relationship because he would have the temptation to turn his head. That kind of crazy example of that's why I'm not willing to be active or exercise. Like that type of justification, it happens and it's common. And unfortunately, we have to be able to recognize that and shift it. But yeah, when it comes to social media, certainly it's for me simply, I've just been trying to make more of an effort of being a producer rather than a consumer. But with that said, I mean, it's there as a tool for everyone, whether that's through for entertainment or for learning and even extending your education. It has a purpose. And so the biggest thing when it comes to social media is, as with anything else, you just need to be proactive and be in control of it rather than it owning you. It's super easy to get sucked into the black hole of Reels or TikTok or whatever. Uh, you just have to be in control of it. And I think that comes through habits like time blocking or just simply setting a screen limit, a screen time limit on your phone of saying, okay, this is my allotment, this is what I stick with. And then outside of that time, here are the other things that I have to achieve. But also, not to anyone's fault, social media is meant to be addicting. It's meant to drag you in. And, I've seen some comparisons to like a slot machine. I totally lost the word for a second. If you think about Instagram, when you swipe down, you just see this spinning ring of, oh, what new videos and stimulus is it going to hit me with? And it's just so easy. You just scroll, scroll, scroll. You get bored. You swipe up, refresh, and now you a whole new world at your disposal. That's really hard to get out of. And I, as well as anyone else, has probably done it. Anyone that says they haven't gotten lost in that, I don't trust them. So, it happens. The thing to be aware of is that it's creating a dopamine feedback loop that draws you back into the app. And so you're scrolling, you exit, and I'm almost certain everyone else has experienced this. And so I would like to know if there's comments anywhere that this is posted to comment about this, because you probably find yourself going in and you exit the app, and then next thing you know, you've clicked back in and you're thinking, how the hell did I even open this app back up? I didn't know I did that. So a few ways to break that feedback loop is, one, remove the app from your home screen and get that icon out of there to kind of break that habitual cycle of, you could probably open your phone with your eyes closed and know how to click the Instagram app or whatever your app is that you use. And so break that cycle, create more friction to entering the app. And then another thing I love to do with clients as well, and maybe this could be insightful for people that want to improve their social media usage, is to actually create a reward system around social media. And this might sound weird, but if you actually engineer a reward system that you can reward yourself based on your usage, you can actually shift the dopamine feedback loop from the actual usage of the social media instead to the actual moderation of your usage. So I'll give you a quick breakdown of what that sounds like, because I know, Chris, you're wondering how the hell could this work. You know, you have 7 days in the week, and you tell yourself, okay, my limit for every day of the week is, I hesitate to say 2 hours because that's a good bit of time, but I'm sure a lot of people's screen time out there is way more than 2 hours between everything, So let's say your goal is, okay, I'm going to hold myself to 2 hours each week. If I get through the week and X amount of days is 1 hour, for each day that's 1 hour or less, that's a 10 out of 10. If I go 2 hours, then okay, that was my expectation, but it's not anything great, it's not anything bad, so maybe that's a 6 out of 10. And you go through each day of the week, scoring yourself on how much you use social media. Of course, if you go 4 hours, then that's maybe a 2 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. And if you can average out that 7-day period to a 9 or above, maybe you can reward yourself with a nice new pair of shoes or whatever your device is. But if you average lower than a 5, then that means that following week you have to do an extra mile on the treadmill each day or something else, and you integrate a habit that's actually beneficial, but a bit of a dreaded thought of 100 push-ups or a mile. Those are some of the things that I use. Implement that into the following week, and now you start to shift yourself away from all the social media usage because you're thinking, I'm gonna have to run this extra mile and I need to buy a new pair of shoes. And if you repeat that over a certain period of weeks, it's been proven to be effective to shift that usage.
Well, I can certainly say, some of us, Jesse, followed like the Hulk after the first 2 months of trying that,
Yeah. Well, hey, and then at least you've grown a love for exercise, or whatever it is that you implement. But yeah.
Sounds great. Do you think, Jesse, there's anything that maybe I didn't ask today or that we didn't go over that you think is particularly important?
I don't think there was anything specific that I was seeking to answer or speak about or that's particularly important. I think the one thing that I would say, and I kind of said it already, is for anyone that feels like they're just kind of in a rut and they expect that it will change staying by themselves without changing their actions, it's not going to happen. And so maybe the idea or topic of, one, it's okay. It's okay to go and find help and invest in help and kind of not make yourself feel guilty or kind of perpetuate a cycle of what I believe it's self-harm in a lot of senses. Like I said, procrastination can be simple, it can be complex. In some ways, it can present itself as a level of self-harm where, you feel guilty for something and now you feel that you've let someone else down, and now that guilt compounds, and now you continue to procrastinate because you feel like you deserve it because you're not worthy of, someone's love. And I've seen a wild array of examples, but you can't feel guilty. You have to just make the choice to either change your habits or go find someone that can help you do that as well, or both, ideally, and just slowly take a step at a time to change your situation. But if you don't, I think the kind of the thing that I could say that I say to everyone, it's a two-question answer or a two-question solution, really. Are you where you want to be? If the answer is yes, then okay, you've nothing to worry about. Usually the answer is no. And then if the answer is no, are you taking X amount of time each week to get one step closer to where you want to be? And if both answers are no, then you know that's a big problem. So go and take the time to get to where you want to be.
Well, that's it's definitely something that it sounds really simple, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just it's that execution that seems to get most of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what prevents people from actually going and looking for help, because a lot of times it is so simple that you think, oh, I'll just, okay, one day I'll make this change or this and that. But we all know we're collectivistic beings. It's helpful to have other people push us and go to the gym with a workout buddy, or, have a business coach to help you grow your business, have a relationship to grow your relationship, have a therapist to grow your everything else. And, feel like that. So yeah, I definitely encourage everyone should be speaking to someone. A doctor has their own doctor, a therapist has their own therapist, so you got to go find someone.
That's very good advice.
Yeah.
Lastly, before we wrap things up here, Jesse, how can our listeners get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Yeah. So yeah, a few great ways. I mean, I'll offer it to everyone right now. You can go to my website. It's mindpeakco.com, and you can check out some resources there, schedule a consultation with me, or email me, jesse@mindpeakco.com, and happy to respond. You can follow me on social media on Instagram at JHHOFF or at MindPeakCo on TikTok or Instagram. And yeah, I'm there to be reached out to. So that's where you can find it.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Jesse. Thank you for coming on the show. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. And just keep on motoring, find that inspiration, that motivation. And if you can't find that motivation or inspiration right now, then be that motivation or inspiration for somebody else. Until next
100%.
time.
Love it. Yeah.